Tears fell quietly as the world woke up to heartbreaking news. Pope Francis, a figure loved and respected by millions across the globe, had passed away. There was no announcement filled with fanfare, no loud mourning, only silence. A deep, almost sacred silence settled over cities, towns, and small villages. It was the kind of silence that carried weight, the kind that spread without words. It touched everyone, no matter where they were or who they were. It was the silence of a world grieving a man who had dedicated his life to love, kindness, and hope. Churches opened their doors early that morning. People walked in with heavy hearts. Some came alone, others came with families. Many lit candles. Some knelt in the pews with heads bowed low. The flames flickered in the still air, casting gentle shadows on the old walls. Those tiny lights looked like pieces of the hope Pope Francis had given to the world. People wept quietly. Their tears weren't just for a religious leader. They were for someone who had made them feel seen, heard, and loved. Across countries, flags were lowered to half-mast. Nations that once disagreed stood united in mourning. Messages of sorrow came from presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, and ordinary people. They spoke of a man who crossed boundaries and built bridges. A shepherd had left his flock, and now the world stood still in his absence. Yet, in the stillness, there was also remembrance. Stories of his kindness, his laughter, and his courage began to surface. They were shared in homes, on news channels, in community centers, and online. The memories felt like gentle hands holding broken hearts. In the early hours, before the city fully woke up, a figure moved quietly through Vatican City. The cobblestone paths, usually full of pilgrims and visitors, were empty. Only the sound of footsteps echoed softly in the cool morning air. That figure was Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. His walk was slow, his head slightly bowed. Every step he took was filled with emotion. He was not just walking to a place, he was walking through memories, through the weight of personal loss and the sorrow of millions. He moved past tall columns and through arched doorways, heading toward Casa Santa Marta, where Pope Francis had lived. The cardinal's black robes shifted gently in the breeze. They were simple, but they carried deep meaning. They were a sign of mourning and respect. Every step he took was like a prayer, unspoken but full of feeling. The silence around him seemed to whisper with memories of laughter, deep talks, shared dreams, and unspoken understanding. As he entered the residence, Cardinal Tagle paused. The halls were dimly lit, the soft light casting a warm glow over the artwork that adorned the walls. He stopped for a moment, his hands clasped tightly together. He stood there in quiet prayer, seeking strength and peace. The walls, decorated with scenes from faith and history, felt like silent witnesses to his grief. They had seen joy, celebration, and now, mourning. His thoughts drifted back to the many moments he had shared with Pope Francis. They had spoken of faith, of hope, of the struggles of the poor, and the need for compassion. They had laughed together, cried together, and prayed together. The Pope was not just a leader to him, he was a mentor, a friend, a spiritual father. In those quiet corridors, the cardinal could almost hear his voice, see his smile, feel his presence. He continued walking through the residence. Each room held a memory. Each corner spoke of a man who had lived simply, but powerfully. The Pope had never needed grand things. He believed in humility, in service, in being close to the people. His room was modest, just like his heart. And yet, from that humble space, his love had reached the ends of the earth. In the gardens outside, the air was fresh and still. Birds chirped softly, unaware of the sorrow that blanketed the world. The statues stood tall, surrounded by greenery, reminding the cardinal of the timelessness of faith. He walked slowly, finding comfort in the beauty around him. There, in the quiet corners, he sat and prayed. He thought of the people who were hurting, the children who had looked up to the Pope, the elderly who had found peace in his words. The world was grieving, but it was also remembering. Cardinal Tagle knew that grief was a part of love, You do not mourn someone so deeply unless they touched your heart in some way.